Welcome back, everyone. In this lecture, we're going to go through the solutions to the crash course. Let's get started. Okay, so here I am at the crash course review exercises notebook, and if you want, you could put these all in the same cell, but basically you just have to do all the imports. Import pandas as PD, import matplotlib.pyplot as PLT, and then we're also going to be using SciKit learn. We'll say from sklearn, preprocessing, import min-max scalar, and you could import that later, not a huge deal. And we're also going to be using train test split, so that's from model selection, import train test split. Next thing we wanted to do was to set NumPy's random seed to 101, so let's go ahead and do that. We'll say np random seed is 101, run that. Let me zoom in just one more level here so you can clearly see this. So np random seed. Then we wanted to create a NumPy matrix of 100 rows. So we'll say mat is equal to np random rand int, because I wanted random integers that can go from 1 to 100. So we're going to say 1 comma 101 because I wanted them to be 100, and then I can say 105. Not a huge deal if you interpreted this to be a 100 here instead of a 101. Not really the purpose of the exercise, just for you to remember how to create a matrix of integers. So again, not a huge deal if you put that as 100. Okay, so coming back down here, then we wanted to create our 2D visualization. The way we do that is we say plt imshow, you pass in your matrix, and then we say plt color bar in order to see a color bar, and then if we want to title it, we just say plt title and say my plot. Now if you just run this, notice that I didn't get anything out, and that's because I haven't set matplotlib inline. So let's go ahead and do this. And you could do this above as well. So we'll say matplotlib inline. Now when I run this, I can see my plot. Notice here though, the dimensions feel off, and that's because I haven't specified the aspect ratio I want for imshow. So if you go ahead and click on this link, it'll take you to a Stack Overflow post that essentially describes how to resize imshow, and later on it just says, hey, use aspect here. So we're going to go ahead and play around with that aspect. Once you play around with the aspect, I ended up choosing a really small aspect ratio to kind of stretch it out. So that's the aspect ratio. No right or wrong answer here, just wanted you to kind of play around with that. Okay, so next we wanted to use pd.dataframe to read in this NumPy array as a data frame. That's quite easy. We just say df is equal to pd.dataframe and then pass this in as our data. So I can say data is equal to mat, and then whoops, if I check out my df, there it is, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, then moving along, I want to, if we scroll down here, now create a scatter plot using pandas of the 0 column versus the 1 column. So you can see here I have 0 and then 1. So to do that, all I have to do is say df plot. I'll say x is equal to 0, y is equal to 1, and then I will specify kind is equal to scatter. And then I have that scatter plot. Next up, I wanted to scale the data to have a minimum of 0 and a maximum value of 1 using SciKit learn. So I just create my scalar object. So we'll say min-max scalar, and then we can have the result, the scale data, and just say scalar. In this case, we'll do a fit transform. That won't always be the case with a train test split, but since that wasn't really specified here, we just show the scaled result. And I can see here the minimum values are zeros and the maximum values are ones. Scrolling down, we get to using your previously created data frame, use df columns to rename the pandas columns to be these columns right here, then perform a train test split with SciKit learn. So if you click on that link, it kind of explains what I'm trying to say here, but you can grab this attribute off the data frame columns and set it to be equal to this list. So I'm going to copy and paste this. And now if I check out my data frame, I can see I've been able to rename the columns. And if you only want to see the head of your data frame, that is the first n number of rows, you can say df.head, pass in the first couple number of rows you want to see, and it'll return back 10 rows for you, 0 to 9 there. And if you don't pass in anything there, automatically just returns the top 5. Okay, so now we want to do the train test split, which means I need to select my feature columns. So one way to do that is say df, and then pass in a list of columns I want. So in this case, it's all the feature columns. Copy that, and then I'm going to paste that in. Run that. Whoops, looks like I have one too many brackets there. There we go. And then for the label column, it's just going to be df label. Run that as well. And then finally, I'm going to do the train test split. So we actually already imported that. So I'm going to say train test split. And then I'm just going to copy and paste. I almost always do this just because the actual terms is a lot to type out manually. So all these 4 things that are returned, I usually just copy them here and then paste them in. And then I change whatever I need to change. In this case, I have capital X and lowercase y, so that makes sense. Test size, I'm not sure if I actually specified this, doesn't really matter. Random state, again, doesn't really matter. As long as you're able to figure out that you could do a train test split this way, and then you can kind of view your results. And you can see here that it works with both NumPy arrays and Pandas data frames. Okay, that's it. If you have any questions, feel free to post through the Q&A forums. But really, we're not going to be using these libraries a whole lot. These basics here is essentially all we need to know to move on to TensorFlow. Thanks, and I'll see you at the next lecture.